public spots where people could choose a menu of worlds to go to that were all safe. Many of these worlds were lush vegetation worlds that were never ruined by man, only to be invaded by the large overcrowded population of the traveler's world. He said something about new industries that opened up because of this, one of them being something like dimension life brokers. These people offered the chance to live as someone new in an already established similar world that doesn't know of dimensional travel, nor that there are people crossing the dimensional border too. Jonas said that he was an explorer for one of the dimensional travel agencies and was looking in new, uncharted dimensions and came upon my Earth. The plot thickens.
That's crazy. I like it.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I like the idea about the list of like approved safe places to go to. That reminds me of this video game that like Dot Hack Infection, and there was like an anime based on it. I don't know if you guys have heard of that video game, but it's like all these like different symbols or whatever you can input, and you'll just get transported to a randomly generated world like that, and it's got your map and dungeons and what have you. But that's so cool. Like that sounds awesome.
Like a Stargate?
Yeah, kind of like that. Exactly.
Yeah, this is cool, and I like how he brings up that there's a lot of perils to it too. That you can go into like end up in Waterworld with Kevin Costner, or like
yeah, that part sounds terrifying.
And portals to work underwater.
Yeah, hard to reopen a portal underwater.
Yeah, you can't do it. Who would think such a thing?
Oh, those things can't get wet.
And the guy's name is Jonas. And
I was like, is this Rivers Cuomo?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Jonas.
Yeah, I'm traveling dimensions.
Sweet.
Can't tell you nothing.
I would listen to that album. Yeah, I can't tell you nothing. Good luck on your own.
Well, it'd still be the Blue Album.
Oh, yeah, because
water.
With
the water. Yeah.
True.
Hey, he's in water.
But let's go on. We haven't, we're supposed to be talking about the Beatles, but we're getting a lot of explanation.
A lot of Weezer, sorry.
A lot of Weezer explanation. Let's go to the original Weezer. Let's get back to the story.
The original Weezer.
We talked about a lot of things. It was interesting to see what similarities and differences we had between worlds. Foods, culture, TV, technology. We covered a lot. We also started talking about music, which was an interesting topic because there were many of the same bands between our worlds that existed, including the Beatles. When their name got brought up, Jonas mentioned that his brother just got back from seeing them perform at a concert recently, which I gave a weird look to and said, "You mean they're still together?" And he said, "Yeah." I then told him about how they broke up in our world and that John and George passed away, apparently. In his world, they are all alive, healthy, and on tour still. Jonas then had me follow him into another room that had a bookshelf-looking thing with some cassette tapes. Yes, the music ones. Apparently, CDs never caught on in this world. And a tape player, radio, record player. Though it didn't quite look like the types of radios we have. The speakers looked more like crinkled cardboard, but sounded pretty good. I didn't get too good of a look at the speakers, but they certainly weren't round. They almost looked like a tall accordion. The only Beatles he had that was store-bought and had the real cover art was Sgt. Pepper's, which the cover looked slightly different than the one we have, but the songs were all the same. The other 6 Beatles tapes that he had were all like somebody recorded them onto a blank cassette for him and wrote the song titles on a card slipped in the case. A couple of the album titles written on the tapes I recognized, but there were about 4 that I had never heard of before. He played a few songs from one of them, which was totally surreal to hear Beatles music that was never made, at least in our world. We talked about it a little bit. He said a girl made the tapes for him while he was in upper school, what they call high school. She was a huge fan of them and wanted him to listen to them. He popped out the first tape and was putting in the second one when I told him he should really record me a copy of one so I could take it back with me, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. Well, the look Jonas gave me when I said this is part of the reason I am remaining anonymous. Not only did it sort of scare me, but it had a very serious, almost creepy look to it, followed by the phrase, not word for word, I can't remember what he said exactly. "No, you are not to take anything with you back to your world. No pictures, no souvenirs, no tapes, nothing." I asked him why, and he wouldn't really say, except for that my safety. I wasn't to take anything back. Whoa.
Yeah. Well, so
gonna
far
change your
this
world.
makes sense. Yeah. This might
not.
change his world.
Yeah, and that's
Wow. This so far, this makes sense.
It might be my favorite quote. That's pretty cool that he got to hear, new Beatles or had at least access to it. It reminds me of something I saw on the internet. Just some person was talking about how in order to have that kind of like new, fresh Beatles experience, he saved like a particular song and like would not listen to it so that later on he can listen to it for the first time kind of thing. And it was Old Brown Shoe. And I remember somebody responding to it like, you picked a bad one to have as your first one.
Whoa, dude, Drea.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Was that you?
So, no.
Okay.
That was not me. But I did the same thing, and I'm still doing it, actually. There's a Velvet Underground album I still haven't listened to. And I started listening to Velvet Underground when I was in, like, 7th, 8th grade. And I have not listened to... well, I won't say which one it is, because I've heard portions of the album, so I don't want to get into it. But yeah, I've done that to myself, where like I started listening to so much of music by an artist that I knew had a finite catalog, where I was like, I want to save something of this for myself.
Something fresh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this guy's got, stumbled upon a lot of fresh.
A bunch.
Not only these fresh, he would never have had the option of hearing this in our world anyway. So according to him, the Beatles have not broken up. They're still on tour. John and George are not dead. The Beatles are just still touring to the day. And they really don't have CDs, which you have.
Whoa.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing here is that John is not dead. Like,
No.
I think the biggest thing
Never
is that
popped
George
him?
isn't dead.
Yeah, George
Sorry.
George defied the medical odds and he survived.
Yeah.
And John was never assassanated apparently. So that whole thing didn't go down.
Maybe they took that CD technology and maybe they don't. He never mentions weapons. Maybe they don't have like really strong guns that could kill you, or they've done a lot more medical research with that money. And he said, now imagine in our timeline if in the 50s NASA had the choice to like, do we research space? We go up there, maybe go to the moon, or do we just go do the whole parallel universes thing and we travel through dimensions? Let's just do dimensions. That's fine.
Let's
That's
do the
fine.
dimensions. Yeah, that's a fun one.
I pick it every day.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Now, we're getting to the meat of this story now, so it's time to get back. Of course,
Get back. I
I'm
get
not.
it. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. That made me laugh.
Of course, I am not the type of person to go through all of this parallel world stuff and not grab something to prove the outrageous story of my experience. So for the moment, I told him I wouldn't take anything and change the subject. About an hour later, after some more talking, I heard a doorbell ring, and he left the room to check the door. I knew that I may not have another chance to take something, so I just grabbed one of the tapes and put it in my pocket, and then shoved the tapes around to make it look less obvious that something was missing. When he came back inside, I said I was kind of hungry. To just get us out of the room, I mixed the tapes up a little so it was hard to tell which one was missing, but I didn't want to be there when he found out. So then he took me in the other room and fed me. For the most part, the food tasted like ours, but was different product names and colors. The purple ketchup was the strangest. We talked a little bit more, and then I expressed the notion that I should be going because it was getting late. The time of day was identical to ours, as is all worlds, sure. We went back in the room with the machines in it. I grabbed my dog and shook Jonas's hand for taking care of me after I was knocked out. I thanked him again and stepped through the portal, which felt like getting wet, but staying dry the entire time. Really weird. When I put my dog on the ground, she even shook herself like she thought she was wet. Back in our world, I could see my car on the road still, and there was straight line burn mark on the ground from where the portal had shown up. It was dark outside, and the only reason I noticed the burn was because it was still smoking from the heat. I walked back to my car, didn't run this time, and drove home. The worst part was, I couldn't even listen to the tape on the way home because I didn't have a tape player in the car. I actually wasn't even able to listen at home either for the same reason, and had to go to Walmart to buy a tape player just to listen to it. Unfortunately, I don't have any information about the tape other than what is written on the card sleeve. The track names are written, as well as the album title, Everyday Chemistry. Everything else about it is as mysterious to you as it is to me. It also wasn't like I could have asked the guy anything about it, especially after taking it from him. I'll post some more about my experience in the coming days, but I have to go to work right now, and this post is already long enough. If anyone has any questions they want to ask me about this incident, then I've set up an email address that you can contact me at thebeatlesneverbroke@yahoo.com. I'll try and answer everyone's questions as best as possible. Lastly, if there is anyone out there that has experienced anything like this, then please contact me. Some of the things this guy said to me almost makes me wonder if this is the first time dimensional travelers have been here.
Wow.
Probably
not the first time. It sounds like there would be a lot of this happening, but because he wasn't allowed to take anything back, it sounds like they have to kind of keep that stuff hush. Kind of like the same reason why if you go back in time, you're not supposed to touch anything because, the butterfly effect or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds okay. Like, I believe this.
What was the name of that album?
So the name of this album, and we are going to get into this album right now. Now, I have to ask you, now I know, Jude, you're a huge Beatles fan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As am I. You've heard of Everyday Chemistry, of course.
I have.
You were very excited when I brought this to you. Now,
I was jumping out of my skin because I love this album.
Let's say it. Now, Drea and Rob, have you ever heard any tracks from the album From Another Dimension Beatles called Everyday Chemistry?
No, I guess I'm not as big a Beatles fan as I thought I was.
It's okay. This is Earth 2 Beatles, and
okay.
You not knowing about it is fine. This actually happened, like I said, he traveled there September 9th, 2009, which I just put together in my head was 9909.
Ooh.
9.
That's my favorite number.
Number nine.
Oh my God.
And this thing is signed off now. He is using a pseudonym. He's signed off as James Richards. I believe James is Paul McCartney's original name. And we all know Ringo Starr is who?
Richard.
Richards.
So
I
Richards,
thought that it was pretty
James
silly
Richards.
for him to even come up with the last name. Like, if you're going to have a pseudonym, you don't, or when people do that anyway, when they're being anonymous or they're trying to keep their friends' anonymity and they're like, we're going to call them, Jane or whatever. And they never refer to them again. Like, you don't need to give yourself a name. Just shut up and tell the story.
He could have been Polly Two Tugs or something,
Whatever. I love that he had to just go to work. After all that happened,
Yeah,
he was, I got to go back to work tomorrow, like at 6 a.m. So imagine having to go back to work after going through that.
Oh, put me back in the portal. Oh.
Yeah, they don't need money over there.
Now, this is not time travel. Trump is not involved in any of this. This is no titter story coming hot off last week. We're talking interdimensional. This man went to another dimension, came back, but he came back with proof. He came back with proof that not only do other dimensions exist, but the Beatles still exist. And it wasn't in the actual story, but somewhere in this man's lore, in his universe, the Rolling Stones are the ones that broke up. So very strange detail.
I'm okay with that.
That's convenient for a Beatles fan.
It's fine with me. You can take me to one where they never existed. I wouldn't really care. Now we are going to break down this album, and you guys have never heard it, so we're going to start with track 1 of Everyday Chemistry. And Rob, it's your call when you want to turn it down. Man, I can't deny these songs. Now remember, this is the band The Beatles in the 1970s. They broke up in 1970, but this is
weird
from
to even hear that phrase.
No, this is them from the 1970s, and from their album Everyday Chemistry. Here is track 1. It's called 4 Guys. not 5 guys. There's only 4 of them. This is track 1. 4 guys over here.
And Pete Best.
What did it do to you? You seem to be in a...
They were just like 4 boys. I really liked them. They were good, real great guys. It didn't really hit me. And then these people standing there singing, and I don't know what they do. They just change you. They're not what they used to think. They're just so much better. They're just like a myth for you is what they seem like. Every little movement's for you and no one else. It seems so personal, but yeah, it's just for everybody.
We were 4 guys that I met Paul and said, do you want to join the band? And then George joined. And then Ringo joined. We were just a band who made it very, very big, that's all.